Yo, 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 yo. What's happening? It is Sunday. I checked out my. I see you. I'm bringing in. You, you,
Sure.
oh, Paul, there he is.
Yo,
Are you
yo,
not?
yo.
All right. So here's the deal, Leo. We've tried this a couple times.
Yep.
I want to make sure my internet works.
You already froze, by the way. So just a heads
See
up.
there? Oh my God. Man, I rebooted everything.
Right.
I don't know what's going on. I really don't. I don't know what's going on. What's up, Carla Martin? How are you? Checking in. My internet sucks. I'm probably gonna cut off a million times, but I gotta get a podcast on.
Love it. Love it.
Man, I'm so frustrated with this internet, this Wi-Fi. I'm gonna freeze a lot. I'm gonna let you know if you're watching this, I'm gonna freeze a lot. If you're listening, I will edit out the freezes so it will be flawless, hopefully. Oh, I'm just
You know
so
what? It's good, man. You know, as long as the people know, people understand this. Everybody going through it between homeschooling and raising their kids and
oh
being in and it's about to get hot. This going to if people thought they were arguing before,
yeah.
imagine when this summer come and you ain't got no AC. It's about to get real. It's about to get real, Michael. Yo.
Man, my internet came down with Corona.
But you fought it like a boss. Come on, son.
I fought it like a boss in ICU for 8 days, but my internet is like, nah, man. Corona's too strong for me. My mic is stopping because it's like, why are you breathing on me?
Right. I'm surprised you don't have plastic over the mic, you know?
My mic asked for it. My mic was like, yo, put some plastic on me, son.
Like, now, the LaCroix, is that part of the healthcare plan? Is that Anthem Blue Cross approved?
You know what? I'm interviewing this doctor. She's really good. She wrote a couple books, and she's a dietitian. She was a dietitian for the Lakers and Golden State Warriors.
Yeah.
And I got so many questions I want to ask her just about health, like immune. We kind of talked today, and she was talking about vegetable oils. Like that's the killer. She goes, it's crazy how all food, and I'm saying this in quotes, are healthier. They're taking out the fat, but yet people are more obese. And she goes, it's all about they're hiding the bad stuff in the good food, like vegetable oils. She's like, you can get all this fat. You're getting the wrong type of fat. So I don't want to, I know you know about nutrition too. I don't want to get into that on this podcast. That's going to be my next one. Mm-hmm. But if you're watching this stream, it's going to cut out. But if you want to leave a comment, I will read it during the podcast, and give me a lot of thumbs up and leave a lot of comments, and we'll read them on the air. But Leo Flowers, man,
what's going on, man?
What can I say about you? Comedian, therapist, trainer. There's so much to you. You're probably, I want to say, one of the smartest people I know, but I don't know many smart people, so I don't know if that's saying much.
Let's go.
I want to start with like what, so people know when you give advice on a therapy side, they know it's real. What makes you a person that did you get a degree in it? Like, tell the people some history so they know when you actually give advice, they know it's really true and they can listen to it, and you actually get hired for this kind of stuff.
I have a master's in counseling psychology, and as part of my internship, I started out counseling inmates and married couples. So I was counseling inmates and married couples in the beginning. And then even before that, I worked in a group home for kids for 3 years while I was in college. So I got to work hands-on with kids who had emotional disturbances, who were behaviorally disruptive, theft, things like that, and got to work with them and teach them coping skills and stress skills on how to manage their emotions and behaviors and work on the way they saw the world and so like their thinking. You know, when they say life is 90% mental, it really is about changing how somebody perceives a situation versus what the situation actually is. So after I worked with inmates and married couples. I then got into life coaching because they just gave me more. They gave me more latitude. So, the experience that I had from counseling married couples and inmates, like people who were struggling with like wanting to take their life, couples who wanted to divorce, couples who were just trying to figure out how to communicate better with each other and helping them through that. I mean, most relationships could be saved if people just knew some of the basic principles of communication. And once people learn how to communicate better, not with just other people, but also with themselves, it makes life, 10 times easier.
I mean, I've learned how to stay in a great relationship. You just say yes. When they say something, you just say yes. I mean, whatever they say, it's yes. You are absolutely correct. Like
That's
my wife can say the sky is pink. I go, you know what? It looked kind of pink today.
Yeah. If I do this, do this long enough, and then
yeah. If I hit myself in the face a couple times, it looks pink.
Right.
It looks pink.
Yeah.
What do they say?
Up too early.
Happy wife, happy life. That's what they say, and I'm all about that life. Now, I do want to talk about like when you were a therapist in prison.
Yeah.
Were there? I mean, I'm sure there were a lot of times where people would make you mad because they tell you everything, things they've done to people.
Yeah.
Crime stuff.
Right.
Killing people, maybe raping somebody.
Yeah.
How do you separate that where you don't get angry and want to physically beat down a person that's telling you, I raped this kid, or I raped this woman, I murdered this woman, I murdered this dude? How do you separate that?
That's a great question. And it's one of the reasons why I try to limit the amount of news that I watch, because the way you can separate it and sit in the pocket and really listen to their story and still want to help them move past it is one, that one day they're going to get out. And so, I can get mad and angry and be like, this person's a horrible person, but they might just have like a 5-year sentence or a 10-year or 20-year. So I'm the last line of defense. That's how I have to think of it. It's like, if I can't help this person process and look at life differently, then they're going to go back out into the world the same person, if not more violent and more threatening. So I took it very seriously. The second thing is that they're not just telling you that, right? This is when you're actually getting the backstory. So like when you watch the news and you hear about the Ahmaud Arbery case or any case where you hear about somebody committing a crime, all you get is that snapshot of their life. And it's very easy to react to that snapshot. You see just the image and it's easy to get all up in arms. But once you hear the backstory, once you hear about their childhood, once you hear about how they were abused, how they were beaten, how they were neglected, how their trust was broken so many times, and how they were mistreated by the system, even before they became a criminal, how the system just came in and destroyed their lives before. You do develop on some level an understanding. Now, the understanding of what they've done doesn't mean that you're condoning what they've done. And I think that's what we've taken out is we're so afraid of looking like we're condoning a behavior that we're not even taking the time to understand the behavior.
Okay. Well, I don't want to cut you off, but you brought up Ahmaud.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And to me, it was pure racist. I don't know all the facts, but just on the outside looking in, it seems racist. Now, I have a son that's 3. He plays with all color kids. They don't know racism, so it's taught.
Yeah.
How much accountable are those kids when they were brought up like that? Like those 2 gentlemen, like the son and the father.
Right.
Because I always say this, and I think we said this the last podcast. I actually talked about this on Rogan the other day. Racism, when people say racism is gone, that's just unrealistic. It doesn't even make sense why racism is gone. Because you hear black people say 400 years, right? That's really, if everybody lived 75 years, let's just say everybody lived 75 years.
Yeah.
That's just 5 people. Now, I want to break this down for a lot of people. if let's go back 400 years and let's say everybody lives 75 years, that's 350 years or 375 years, something like that. So that person that's racist, their kids are going to be racist because they had slaves just 200 years ago, 300 years. So that next generation.
He froze on me. He froze, Michael. You have frozen.
I mean,
we're gonna start. What's the song from the movie Frozen?
Am I back, Leo?
You're back. Yeah, you're back.
All right, so I'm picking up. So that's 3 people.
Yeah.
Now I've gotten to 3 people. So my dad is 4. My dad is black.
Yeah.
He went through racism, and he went through racism to get a PhD in nuclear physics.
Yeah.
So there was still racism. So that's 4 people right there. Me is the first generation I feel that is turning the corner. The younger kids, I think, are even better than us. And, there's always going to be racism, but like my thing, it's probably 4 to 5 people beyond us where the world is a much better place for racism, where everybody's treated more equally. But like you said, you have a stand-up bit where you're like, well, then people are going to pick zodiac signs and go after each other. There's always going to be some type of racism. Right. But as far as skin color, I feel that's.
Man, he froze. He froze again, yo. Here we go, yo. Here we go, yo. So what the scenario? He's coming back in, ladies and gents.
Am I back?
And you are almost back. Your video, back? I can hear you, but your video's still frozen.
This sucks ass. Can you hear that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you.
Okay, good.
I got you.
Are you serious? Is it that bad?
I mean, you just got back. Just at right this moment, I feel like Aladdin. What is this? Back.
This is horrible, man. This is horrible. So that's what I'm saying, man. I think skin color racism is still another 400 to 500 years away. But it'll be something else. It'll be classism then.
Right. And you're right. Will there always be a division amongst people? Yes. Whether we're talking about race, whether we're talking about socioeconomic status, whether we're talking about athletes versus nerds. Like, I mean, high school is a complete microcosm of what the world is like. Like, we all want to sit in our different groups, and sometimes there's going to be tribal fighting, and then sometimes we're going to be in tribal fighting. I mean, that's the way it's always been throughout the world. We're not just talking about America, but in terms of how do we address it, how do we handle it, how do we look at this, is like, because we started this conversation off with the Ahmaud Arbery case, is does there need to be justice? Do these men need to be put in jail? Absolutely. However, it can't stop there. Just because we caught the people who committed the crime and put them in jail, that's not complete justice. Complete justice is then looking at the culture of where they were raised. Because like we talked about it, those men weren't raised in a vacuum, right? We have to look at their family system. We have to look at the neighborhood. We have to look at the city. We have to look at the state. What are all the contributing factors that led up to this moment? It didn't happen in a bubble. And so when we start to have those conversations, that's when we can really start to peel back the layers and make a real dent in the division that we're experiencing on some level.
But can't you say it did happen in a vacuum? Because if you're from that area he's from, like, there were lynchings. They were known for lynchings in the South in Georgia, So if you've always lived there, never ventured out, so you are in a vacuum, and that's the way you were raised.
Well, what I mean is that the nature of that area, of that city, of that neighborhood is as partly the result of what's happened around it. So take, for instance, Detroit, right? Like, Detroit was this hustling, bustling city. And then, the factory shut down. And as a result of the factory shutting down, unemployment skyrocketed. And now Detroit looks nothing like it did way back in the day. And that effect started from outside of Detroit. It didn't happen in Detroit. It was a shift in what the nation and what the world was going through. People started buying more foreign cars. And so something that happened globally had an effect locally. And we see that happen time and time again. So that's what they mean when they say we have to look at the system. We have to look at all the contributing parts that led up to a moment. And that's how we're going to make a difference here.
Okay. So it's just so frustrating, this racism, because I grew up with it. You grew up with it. We've all experienced it. And I think it puts it in perspective when I see my son at a playground. They have no sense of color. They're just having fun with kids. And that just makes me so angry that there are people out there teaching this. And that's the thing. It can be prevented, but there are people out there that are just teaching this,
I'm glad you brought up something that's very powerful. You brought up the emotion of anger, and that's the face that we usually see in the news. People upset, people protesting, people very angry. On the flip side, like you said, I'm from Chicago. I'm from the north side. I've had cops harass me. I've had gangs harass me. I've experienced racism on different levels. And at the end of the day, I think that what got me into mental health and got me into psychology and got me into working with people is, even as a young kid, when I saw the cops and the way they would talk to me and try to harass me after school and what gang are you in and what drugs do you do, I always felt sad. That was always my first emotion. It wasn't anger. I always felt sorry for them. I was like, here you are, you're an adult, I'm a kid, and the best part of your day is having this conversation with me. Like, this is where you decided at your age of 43, 44, you're married, maybe you have kids, maybe you don't. And this is the thing that excites you. There's a sadness in that. And when we start talking about not just the anger that people feel, but the sadness that people feel, now we can open up a broader discussion.
Yeah.
And get into something deeper. But that's a harder discussion. No guy wants to walk around and says, I'm sad. You know what I mean? Like, that's not a guy emotion. But when we tap into that, it creates a more diverse communication.
Yeah, it does. It does. I guess I use anger because I ain't walking around like, oh, I'm so angry. It's just like, anger was around.
House, yo.
Yo, I know what you doing. Why y'all doing? No, it's more of like just frustration. It's like, haven't we learned anything? Like, we keep falling to the same shit over and over again. And that's the thing that's so upsetting. It's just it just goes around in circles. It's just the same shit over and over, and nobody gets any better. And I said this before too, but like when people say it's not better than when it is a lot better, because my dad experienced when it was
froze again. That's why there's those people.
Let me know when I'm back.
Oh yeah, you back.
So as Black people, we need to stop saying, it's no better than when it was. Because my dad will be the first one to tell you, oh yeah, it is. You can go to restaurants. You're not banned from restaurants. People just can't they still can pull you over, but they could do a lot worse things to you. Look, there's instances where shit happens today and it's horrible, but that happened even more back then.
Yeah.
Because it was open season. You know what I mean? Like when my dad said, when people protest today, they know pretty much they're going to come back alive. When he protests, you didn't know. You did not know, because they could do anything to you if you were Black protesting back then. Throw rocks at you. At least there's some sense of, I don't want to say respect, because people don't really respect each other, but nobody's going out to like try to hurt you when you protest a lot of times in America, where it was open season back then.
And, one of the things that, are there moments where I get angry? Absolutely. But one of the things that helps me to cope with what I see and what I hear and what I read about is, just stepping outside the doors and seeing life being lived. To see, me and my girl went to a farmer's market today. Like, nobody was trying to bump into me or hurt me or yell anything at me.
That's the softest place in the world is a farmer's market. If you get beat down in a farmer's market, you deserve that shit. If somebody whoops your ass at a farmer's market.
Yeah, everybody in flip-flops and hemp shirts.
You got your ass whooped at a farmer's market? The softest people on earth.
That's right. That's right. They carrying heirloom tomatoes, and you still he ain't even put the tomatoes down. He was still holding a.
He beat your ass with a flip flop. That's what he did. A Tom shoe upside your head.
A Tom shoe, right? It was recycled. It was
recycled. He beat your ass with, then recycled it.
Recycled plastics.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So, but when you go to these events, you and I, we went to Joe Coy's concert, man.
Yes.
And here's a guy who is Filipino. He sold out 2 arenas in Los Angeles, and it just wasn't Filipinos there. There were Black people, white people, Asian people, Latinos, like all the people of different ethnicities and different socioeconomic statuses coming together. We all came in real cordially, and we all left cordially, and there was no beef. And so when we see that type of public display of love and that type of public display of cooperation and unity and people coming together to see one person, that's the beauty of sports. We talk so much about the violence of football, but you go to a game, man, and we're all on the same team, right? We all got the same jersey on. We're all waiting in line. There's no like, hey, who'd you vote for? It's like, hey, you're here, I'm here, we're all good, So we have to also remind ourselves to look for evidence of unity and evidence of cooperation.
Isn't it crazy that a lot of people that are racist outside of sports, like sports, like you said, I know, like, as being comedians, we know racist people, but they cheered for the same team you did, and they were filled with Black players. That's what's so amazing to me is that, like sports, there's certain comedy, sports, there's certain things that will break the barrier. I've taken you to places that are super racist, towns that are racist, but when they leave the show, like they even come up to you and go, I remember, I don't know if you were there or not, but 5 people in Trump hats came to my show. And I'm not saying Trump people are racist, but it's not looking good. But these 5 guys came up to my show, 5 guys in Trump hats, front row at my show with their wives. And after the show, and this is what I think it is. You talked about anger. They said, I've never had someone speak to me in a way and told their story, but didn't blame me for their story. But I understood it was part my people. Like I didn't have to, you white people do this, you white people do that. I just told my story. And they were like, oh, we did that. You know what I mean? And that's what I found. I think, I want to hope that comedy, I think comedy is, like Dave Chappelle says, it is a voice that a lot of people can relate to. It can piss off a lot of people, but there's different comedians that can, I feel like, touch people that wouldn't necessarily listen to you either. You're kind of people, and I'm saying that in quotes too, because it takes a certain person to talk to another person that says, here's my story. I'm not blaming you for it, but I'm letting you know what I went through. And I'm not putting it on you, but I just want you to understand my story. And I think that gets lost. What happens is we just yell at each other. And instead of we say white people, we say Black people, we say Asian people, we say Mexican, Latinos, but we don't, the proper way to say it, some white people, some Black people do this. Some, like, I feel that the thing that always stands out to me, one of my friends was watching the news, white guy, and he goes, why every time I turn on the news, I feel like they're blaming me. Every time you turn on the news, some white guy is doing something to some ethnic guy. And he goes, they make it seem like all white people are like that. And I disagree with it. I totally understand that side. But then on the reverse, it's like, why you turn on the TV every time and there's a Black dude going to jail or doing something bad? It's just the way the media paints things. And it's just the way we're used to seeing it. So it's going to take generations for that cycle to break.
Well, you brought up a good point in that it's about telling our story. And instead of letting the news tell our story, right? It's important for us, like, wherever the, Ahmaud Arbery case took, there's so many different stories in that city of racial unity and cooperation that we're not going to hear because it's not going to get the publicity that this is receiving. And there's so many stories like that, throughout the world. And it's just about, like, one of the top podcasts is called The Moth. And The Moth podcast is where people are just telling their story. And that's what we love. In the book, Homo Sapiens by Yuval Harari, he says that there are two things that unite this human species and why we've been able to thrive for so long. One is our ability to connect interspecially. I don't know if that's the right word, but basically we're really the only species that can work with horses, dogs, bears, cats. Like we can work with different animals and not just ourselves. And so that, like, bears aren't working with lions, right? But the second thing is the ability to tell stories. Like, you're a Miami Hurricane fan.
Yeah.
If you met another Miami Hurricane fan, no matter what their race was, where they were from, what their backstory is, you two immediately would connect. He could be from, Uzbekistan or Sri Lanka or, Karachi, Pakistan. And if he said he was a Miami Hurricane fan, because you believe in the story, in the history of the Hurricanes, you would immediately connect. You see that with religion. You see that with sports. You see that with food. It's like, oh, you're a vegan, I'm a vegan. We speak the same language. And so that's, we're so caught up in the stats, but the connection is made in stories. And going back to relationships is, if you think about the things that destroy your relationship, it is the person. You always talk about don't keep score. Well, I did this and you did that. Well, I did it 3 times, you did it once. So those are stats, those are numbers. And when we throw those stats out, it's easy to divide people in a country and a relationship. But when we tell our story, when we talk about why I did what I did, when we share the story of our childhood, and this happened to me when I was 3, and then when I was 8, and then when I was 9, and some of that's showing up for me right now. Now we can have compassion for each other instead of anger. It goes back to you asking me, how was I able to sit there with these inmates? In my head, I have to call them inmates. I could call them criminals, but if I call them criminals, I'm already passing a judgment. These are people who I can't even imagine their childhood. Like I said, I worked in a group home, so I've seen the before. And if nobody gets to them, between their childhood and adulthood, going back to stats, it doesn't look very good for them. So it's knowing the backstory. So us sharing our story that allows us to have compassion and have a conversation with each other.
Well, I do want to, about sharing stories, I wanted to ask you about your story. I know a couple times you've actually called the suicide hotline, right? So I want to know what led you to do that. Were you troubled? Because it's interesting to me, you do therapy, but yet you've been through it too, where you were actually the one calling the hotline.
Yes.
How did it get to that point when you studied this? This, and you still fell into a place where you had to call a hotline.
Is one of the things where why do personal trainers become personal trainers? Usually they have some type of eating disorder, or they have some type of backstory where now they can only control their body and what they eat. And so now that's what they do. So a lot of times people who get into helping professions have a backstory of trouble, of neglect, of some type of abuse. And so for me, it was, my father was in and out of my life as a kid. And I had always felt like a burden to my mom, and always felt like my dad didn't really love me. And there were some things that happened when I was in college that just kind of in my head solidified that. I was like, man, I don't understand how my father, who wanted me, and it's not like I was an accidental child. He actually wanted me as a son, had me. And then I was like, well, how are you not around? And to watch my mom struggle And then I just had some other incidences with other people where my trust was broken over and over again. So I struggled with trust. I struggled with feeling lonely, like a burden. And it just these moments of hopelessness. And the way I could describe it to people is like depression is you're so overwhelmed with emotion that you then go numb. So depression is really a overwhelming feeling of emotion that you now you don't know what you're feeling, and nothing tastes the same and music doesn't sound the same. Suicidality though is a different thing. Suicidality is it's and it's been described like this in books, and it's how I describe it. It feels like a flare up. It feels like it's a feeling like you're in a burning building and the only option is to jump. But the people on the ground are telling you don't jump, but the people on the ground don't see the flames. And that's the only way you can describe it. It's this internal flare up, and you don't know when it's going to hit you. You don't know why it's going to hit you. It hits you like a sandstorm in Africa.
But let me ask you, how do people get to that point? Because look, I've never been in a depressed state. The only time I've ever got depressed is when I was in that hospital fighting for my life, because you just don't know. And I wouldn't even say I was depressed. I was like, I'm gonna make it. I was sad, definitely sad. I could never see my family again. But how do people get, because look, I don't know a lot of people in a depressed state right now, I guess you would say. I kind of hang around people like me, positive, upbeat, I probably wouldn't, not to be a dick, but I probably wouldn't have hung around with you when you were calling that hotline,
No, because I take that. Absolutely.
Because we all look for people that kind of vibe with us. But I'm sure people that were on that level where you were would hang out with you. You know what I mean? So how does a person get to that level? And there's no disrespect when I'm asking this. I know everybody got their journey. I know everybody got their struggle, but what was it that got you that point? Because I want everybody watching this and everybody that's listening to the podcast to understand, because I got to be honest, when I was younger, much younger, maybe 20 years ago, I thought if I heard the word depressed, I go, oh, that's on you. Like, that's just you not having I don't want to say it's made up because I don't want to drive people crazy, but this is years ago. This is 20, 25 years ago. I was like, oh, they just sad. And they using depressed for it. Like, everybody's sad sometimes, and I'm definitely learned a lot since then. And I don't believe that anymore. And I know it's a journey to get to the point of being depressed where you got to call a suicide hotline. But how did that journey, because you've interviewed all these people, you've helped these people. How does that journey usually start? Is it at home with no parents, from a broken home? Is that how it usually starts?
It's not so much about what happens to you as much as it's your perception of what happens to you. So that's why you'll hear about kids who grew up in a wealthy home with both parents ending their life. You hear about poor people who grew up in the worst type of circumstances, and they had this robustness about them. And like it's almost like nothing happened. Like you would think they had the best childhood and were born with a silver spoon in their mouth. So it's not necessarily environmental or context related as much as it's perception related. It's your perception of what your circumstances mean. It's your perception of what that smile meant, of what that hug meant, of what the absence meant, of what the presence means. I give you an example, going back to when I was a kid in 9, I remember specifically having this thought of, if my mom didn't have me and my sister, she would live a much better life. Now, where does that thought come from? Nobody put that thought in my head. That was just a thought I had. And I remember having that thought. And then I remember specifically making it a point to be as least of a burden as possible to my mom, so that, because I'm watching her work, I'm watching her try to put food on the table. She's sending us to a Catholic school. I'm watching the amount of money she has to spend and all she has to do. There was, when you say what was the one thing, it's an accumulation of things. I'll give you the second example. when I was 9 or 10, my mom also told me that she might lose her job. And as a result, she might have to prostitute herself. I'm 9 and 10 years old. When you
and
hear
she told
that,
you that.
she told me this on the phone, right?
Wow.
So when you hear that as a kid, I remember thinking, man, if my mom has to work, has to quit her job or gets fired, has to walk the street, I'm going to be embarrassed. My boys are out there on the street. And I was like, I don't want my mom to do that. And I was like, when we were in Catholic school at the time, I was like, just take me out of Catholic school. Like, if putting us into the best school in the neighborhood is putting this much of a drain on you, I'd rather you take us out and then use that money to like pay bills or whatever you have to do. And Michael, I've had a job ever since then. Ever since I was 9, I was cleaning houses, I was mowing lawns, I was selling magazines, I worked at Popeye's Fried Chicken. I would go after school. I was going to football practice and holding sometimes, depending on the time of the year, not during the season, a full-time job. I did everything in my power to make sure that I was not the reason why my mom had
was
to
a
walk
prostitute.
Yeah, you know, so and like I said, there were so many other these cumulative things where my best friend, the guy who I thought was my best friend, just did the most like the craziest stuff and put me in harm's way. And I just could not believe that somebody who I broke bread with went to their house for Thanksgiving. So it was an accumulation of things that, and there's some biological factors too, that people who when they talk about psych, they call it psych ache. It's different than a headache. Like a headache is like this throbbing right here in the front or in the back, or there's like a sharp pain. But a psych ache, it feels like a balloon swelling. I talked about the flare-ups and feeling like there's like this internal fire. It's like a flare-up that happens. And the first time I called the 1-800 suicide hotline was when it was one of those days. You ever have one of those days where you got everything you wanted, where you were just firing on all cylinders? You're like, this happened, that happened, knock that out. Life is great. And I still had a flare up. And that scared the hell out of me, because in my head, I was like you. I was like, my depression, these flare ups, is because I'm not living the life I want. I'm not getting the things done I want to get done. And when I had that day where I was like, hell yeah. And then I was like, oh, it's still here. And that scared me, yo. When I tell you, man, I think I cried like 3 or 4 times. I was like, I don't know how to handle this. And then, I started the podcast because Rashaan Salaam, I play football. You play football. We both play college football. Rashaan Salaam played, I forgot who he played for Colorado. And Heisman Trophy winner, then played for the Chicago Bears. And then at the age of 30, ended his life.
Wow.
And this was a guy, smart guy, funny guy, had a good background as far as I knew. I mean, I don't know, the specifics. And at the age of 30, took his life. And it always baffled me because you don't really get the context in the news stories. You don't get the backstory. Years later, I ran into a friend of his, and I was like, "You have to tell me why he ended his life. I can't believe it. Like, he had all the things that if I had it, I think I would have been happy. I would have no more depression." And he said he didn't know how to take care of himself.
As in what?
And
like diet, like
and when people come to me, because I life coach, also I have the podcast. When people that as adults, as children, we learn so many things. We learn the state capitals. We learn 2 + 2 is 4. We learn colors, et cetera, et cetera. What we don't really learn is how to take care of ourselves. We don't learn how long should we nap for. How much sleep is enough sleep? We don't learn proper communication skills, like do I use I versus you versus we? We don't learn how to connect with somebody else. A lot of times in relationships, people say, they just don't listen to me. Well, what are they? Are they doing this while you're talking? No, they hear what you're saying. It's just they're not processing it in a way that makes you feel heard. So we don't learn how to just not communicate with other people, but how to communicate with ourselves and how to frame things. So, like, for instance, there's growing up, and I'm sure you heard this, don't go to bed angry, right?
Yeah. Well, that's me and my wife do that. Like, right. We will never go to bed.
But it's always framed in the context of a relationship.
Yeah.
But to extrapolate it and expand on it even more, what they really mean is don't watch the news before you go to bed. That's going to make you angry. Don't watch TV shows or a Michael Moore documentary. Don't listen to music that's going to, don't get emotionally charged up before bed. But a lot of us do that. And then we wonder why we can't sleep. And then we wonder why we feel like crap the next day. And then we wonder why we're yelling at our spouse. And then why we're overeating. So when we talk about depression, when we talk about suicidality, when we talk about divorce, relationships, we're always when we're talking about the shooting of Ahmaud Arbery, what we're really always talking about is an accumulation of things. And until we start having a conversation of what are the factors that contributed to this, what are the accumulating factors that led up to this argument, when we start to peel back the layers, that's when we start to connect more. And that's how we build bridges.
I tell you, I can't even watch the news anymore.
Right.
And for the people listening, I don't care what side you're on. It's just, it's so, like, to me, you always don't understand the other side. Like, especially, like, I'm just angry that facts don't matter anymore because people can twist facts. You know what I mean? And that's what I hate about watching the news is if I turn on CNN right now, I know they could be yelling about testing. You know what I mean? And it's true. And Donald Trump, you turn on Fox, why do we need tests? Well, obviously you need tests to find out where everybody has this at so you can combat it. And, like, people are starving. People don't have jobs anymore, and I think what people forgot was this stay-at-home order was for the government to figure their shit out. But the problem is they didn't, so you're still at home. Like, that was the whole thing. They told people to stay at home to kind of limit the disease, make sure the hospitals weren't overthrown with people, and give them time to make a plan. Right. The problem is 2 months later, there's still no plan. And now people are like, yo, we gave you 2 months of our lives. I'm starving. I'm not making money. My family's going under. And it's because of you guys. And if you're a Republican, then you're blaming the governor. If you're a Democrat, you're blaming the president because you're like, well, the president runs everything. So why isn't this happening? So I think that's what the conversation really needs to be about is instead of this Republican, this president, it's more of, look, as a community, look, I had COVID. I almost died from COVID, but I still know we need to get back to work and we need to do it safely. But we also need guidelines, a full country of guidelines that the country follows, because right now you pass by Walmart, you pass by Target, lines are down the street to get in those places. But you're telling me a mom and pop shop can't open up when so Democrats are yelling about big business, Republicans funding big business, and we need to get back to small business. Big businesses are still winning. Target, Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, they're all open. But the little mom and pop shops, they're not open unless they're unless they're just not obeying the law. And that's what confuses me. You can have 300 people in a store with a mask on, but you can't have a little cafe with 5 people with a mask on. Like, somebody please explain that to me, because that's where I'm confused about this whole thing. Like, the big business is winning again. And whether if that's the Republicans' fault or Democrat fault, I don't know. I'm just telling you what I saw. You know what I mean? And that's what's so frustrating to me right now. And the news just highlights that even more because, like I said, I was watching the news, and it doesn't matter when Cuomo's on. I love Cuomo, the governor of New York. Mm-hmm. If he says one line about Trump, you can disregard the hour-and-a-half press conference he just had about facts, and they will take that one soundbite, and then that's the news for 24 hours. That one soundbite about Trump, and then Trump replies, and there's your news story. It has nothing to do with facts all day. And I'm talking about all networks. I'm talking about Fox. They'll take a clip that somebody said and they'll run that all day. Trump can say anything and Fox will run it like it's fact. And CNN will take something, it's salacious. Everybody's looking for the most salacious thing because that's what we love to watch. And that's what's so frustrating with the news. So you're right. All that to say you're right. When I don't watch the news, I haven't watched the news in 2 days. I'll read it here and there. I'll check in, see the headline. And if the headline angers me, I'm definitely not reading the article because I already know what's going to be. So news definitely dictates my mood.
Well, you brought up two very important things, and talking about the news, and I'm so grateful that I have an amazing girlfriend, and we both had a discussion about like what are we consuming in terms of news, music, movies, television shows, and making sure that we're digesting. We're not just talking about making sure we're eating the right foods, but that we're reading the right foods and we're watching the right food. So shout out to my girlfriend. She just bought us the master class, with all the thought leaders, the different chefs and entrepreneurs and writers and people who are at the top of their game. And we're just going to watch, that's going to be we watch Billions also on Showtime. No sponsorship. I love that show. But masterclass, this is an opportunity for us to, and I'm not saying, first of all, I want to say, it's not that I don't watch the news at all. Of course, you have to be informed. But what I do is I limit myself. I go, listen, all right, 20 minutes a day, same time every day. And I usually do it in the middle of the day because first I want to make sure I primed my body through exercise. I prime my mind through meditation and journaling and reading something positive and self-affirmations. So I prime my body and my mind to make sure I'm ready to consume whatever I'm about to read. And then somewhere in the middle of the day, I read it so that I'm not going to bed angry. And then, like I said, the second thing was like we watch informative stuff, things like, food docuseries or documentaries, or, we're going to watch all the master classes just to fill our brain with knowledge and different perspectives. It goes back to having an understanding and having a compassion and having some context for what's going on in the world. But then you also brought up, and this is very important. You brought up the idea that, people are starting to funnel back out into the streets because we gave them time to come up with a plan. There doesn't seem to be one. And so now there's this confusion. There's this frustration that we feel. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing it on a macro level, but it also happens on a micro level. And what I mean is a lot of arguments in relationships take place because there hasn't been a new discussion on what the vision is. This quarantine is new for all of us. It almost happened overnight. This social distancing is jarring. People are homeschooling and now they're in tight quarters. Some people are able to work from home. Some people can't work from home. And a lot of people have not taken the time to sit down as a family unit and discuss what the vision is now, instead of being in this fight, flight, or freeze mode, right? Get out the limbic system. Let's get back into our prefrontal cortex and let's actually have a vision. What's our 3-month, 6-month, 8-month, 12-month plan, irregardless of what the country does? Because if we play this, I'm gonna wait to see what the president wants to do or what the country's doing. Now we're kind of frozen. We're not taking any action, and taking no action means you're going to go backwards because nothing just stays the same. Change is always a constant. So we need to always be communicating what the vision is, what our purpose is. When you watch these military shows, what makes SEAL Team 6 so effective, what makes the Rangers so effective is that before they leave, before they step out and they go on their mission, they discuss what the mission is. They know exactly why they're there. They know exactly what the purpose is so that everybody is on the same team. And some people need to have this daily. Some people need to have it weekly. The more you work together, the less of these discussions you need to have. But you definitely need to sit down and discuss what the vision is so that everybody's operating on the same page.
You know what's funny? I remember you used to try to give me relationship advice and you were single and I was married with a beautiful wife and kids, and you were like, yeah, but you need to do this. And I'm like, shut up, Mr. Single Man.
God, he just froze up again.
Oh,
I got
Are we back?
Oh, yeah, you back.
Yeah, so I was like, I need to give you advice. You don't need to be giving me advice. So it's good to see you have a girlfriend. I've never seen you happier. What I like about your girlfriend, I haven't spent little time with her, but I haven't spent much. What I like, and this is what I'm gonna tell everybody watching and that's listening to the pod, is no matter who you're dating, they need to make you a better person. And I think that's the most important thing. You need to have their interest and they need to have your interest. Where I think so many people get in relationships, especially when you're younger. That's why it's not going to work when you're younger. It's about looks. You know, my wife is beautiful, but it's more than beauty with my wife. You know, like I knew when I met my wife, this is how great my wife is. When I first met her, I was like, she would be an amazing mom. You know what I mean? That's the first, because she was so caring, so loving, so beautiful. And I was like, I was all about family at that time, you know, and it's like it's just something that's so special to come home and knowing somebody's at home that wants you to be a better person and that's helping you be better in your life. Yeah. And that's what's so incredible when you find the right person. And I would suggest to anybody that's not in a great relationship right now, because
breezy got the
back.
Oh, you back.
Back.
You back.
My thing is, if they don't make you a better person, get out, because then you're just kind of spinning your wheels in place.
Yeah.
So I mean that, and Leo, I'm happy for you. It took you a long time, but
but you know what? It goes back to vision, yo, in that I you know, like you said, when you're young, you're looking for the physical, and I absolutely was like, I need to find someone that I felt that we were growing together. Like it was this consistent reciprocity. That's like, I've been in relationships.
Reciprocity. God damn. I don't know what reciprocity means. Wait, hold on a second. I need to find a dictionary.
Oh, look, I like to take credit for that. I had a therapist.
Reciprocity. He woke up this morning, wrote down that word, said, today I am about to drop this on the podcast. Reciprocity. What does reciprocity mean, Leo Flowers?
Consistent reciprocity means that we're constantly feeding each other. Like, like it's a give and take, basically. And we are constantly, just today, like, you know, we're both taking online classes, right? Our whole mentality behind this is growth. How do we grow during this quarantine? That's our vision. That's our purpose. That's our mission.
What online class are you taking?
So I'm taking online guitar lessons, sign language, because everybody's wearing a mask. So soon we're going to have to go ASL, you know. And then I'm also taking online Spanish lessons. And then we both have a couples therapist, and then I have an individual therapist. So
what online Spanish class you taking?
Actually, she's in South America. So it's not even a class. It's one-on-one for an hour. It's super intense.
How many days a week do you do it?
Say it again.
How many days a week do you do it?
I just started. So I only had one lesson. I'm doing it twice a week. Because I did the Duolingo. It's not fun.
It's garbage.
It's not fun. It's actually like I was picking up a lot of words, but it's just not fun. And so you have to find a way to learn. You have to find a way to move and exercise. Like when people tell me they don't want to work out, all right, well, do you want to dance? Do you like to garden? Do you like to fix cars? Like nobody likes to sit around. I refuse to believe that people just like to sit around. It's just about finding your mode of learning, your mode of movement that works.
You need to find something you love to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I used to love boxing till I hurt my shoulder. Now I don't love it anymore.
Right. Same.
I just need to find something I love. You know, I loved Lift Society. I used to go to this place called Lift Society. Yeah. And I love weights. Yeah. You know, but I don't have weights anymore. So now it's like, what do? I'm just taking walks, just trying to stay healthy, get my lungs back because there's still kind of some fluid in it. So I'm just trying to get my bearings, but I just love lifting. I know I'm a dude that just is a weight lifter. You know, it doesn't have to be heavy. I just like moving plates.
Yeah.
You know, that's my thing. You know, stretching school, I'm stretching more because I got more time. So I'm focusing on stretching. I'm trying to learn Korean and Spanish. So I'm trying to I had the master class, but I'm a type of dude, if I'm not interviewing you, I don't really want to hear your story. Like, because I want to ask my questions. I want to get the information to people. I think that's important. I don't just like people talking, but some people like that. I feel it reminds me of school. I hate school. I don't like people just and I was terrible at school. So I hate that too. So like, I know you're a trainer as well. You're a great trainer. You've trained me several times. For people stuck at home, if you could give me 2 things they could do at home to, I don't want to say stay in shape because you got to do more than 2 things, but to stay fluid. Like what can they wake up and do? Or like, hey, these are 2 or 3 things I got to do today to just stay good. Like I've heard burpees, but burpees is tough for a lot of people. You know what I mean?
A lot of people.
And it could be jarring on your back too if you're not really in shape and stuff like that.
Most people don't have the core strength or the shoulder mobility to do burpees. And my other problem with burpees is that we're already spending a lot of time in this forward position, whether we're on our laptop or we're on our cell phone. So our arms are always in front of us. So you start to see people with the hunched over shoulders.
Yeah.
So we need to do exercises that open us up, that work on our posterior chain versus our anterior or front chain. But what I do every morning, I do 6 sun salutations, and you can just YouTube that. But I do a lot of mobility work. And
wait, 6 sun salutation, is that meditation?
It's like a type of a yoga flow where like, you know, like a centipede, walk out, lower yourself, press up, you come up into like a warrior stance, et cetera, et cetera. But the type of stuff I do, I can't even explain to you. People wouldn't know it unless they're really heavy into working out. But I do a lot of shoulder mobility, hip mobility. I would just say that for people listening in, just focus on mobility. Google or YouTube any mobility YouTube video and just start working on your mobility. Don't think about weight. Don't think about gaining or losing. Think about movement. Think about motion. If that's too much for you, dance. Put together a playlist for 20 minutes and dance. Me and my girl, we're gonna take this online salsa class. Like, mix it up.
But you got no rhythm.
Huh?
What are you doing? You can't dance.
I know I can't dance, but that's why I'm taking it. Because I don't.
You are horrible.
If I do something I can already do, I'll be bored.
You're embarrassing to the black race. You are embarrassing to the black race with no dance skills.
I'm very Frankenstein with my movements. I'm not going. I'm very stiff. I'm not gonna lie. I'm the Tin Man minus the oil. There's no. I'm at the beginning of the Wizard of Oz. So, but that's why we practice, and that's what makes it fun and makes it interesting. Is I can't do it, So. But just if you at the very least get up and get your steps in, get that vitamin D, go for a walk first thing in the when you wake up, because you want to get the serotonin from the sun so that you can trigger your circadian rhythm. People think that going to bed at night is about like what you do right before you go to bed, but it really starts from the time you wake up. The sooner that you wake up, get outside and get actual sun on you, that's when you trigger their circadian rhythm so that you can go to sleep at night. That's what's going to help you produce that melatonin. But we need the serotonin to be produced as a precursor for the melatonin so that you can sleep at night. So first thing, go outside, get some vitamin D, get some fresh air, and then do it again at lunch, and then basically go for a walk after every meal. If you can do that, that's the best advice I can give you, because everything else has to be really specific and I got to show you and do demonstrations. But the best advice is go for a walk after every meal and go with the family. When I tell my clients that and they've never done it, they're always so happy about how they feel and what a difference it makes in the conversations that they have and the stories that they tell. It's a great time to connect.
Well, I remember when I was trying to get well because I was in quarantine at home. I took walks, 3 or 4 walks every single day when I was quarantined in our house. And man, I felt amazing and time flew. And then I got back with my family. I'm like, God damn, it's slow as hell right now. Like these days are dragging. I'm
But
like,
the months are speeding by though. It's like, damn, we're already in May.
yeah. Yeah, it's bananas how fast things. I tell
Yeah.
you, a quick story before we go. I tell you, and you know this story, Leah. I think I've told you this before, but I was talking to a much older gentleman. We're probably like 86 years old, and he goes, "The older you get, time goes by faster." And I go, "Why is that?" He says, and not in a bad way, but you have nothing to look forward to anymore. And I think we got into a discussion about this. And his theory was when you're young, you look forward to everything, getting out of school, going back to school, Christmas, birthdays, friends' birthdays, going out at night, the weekend. Then as you get older, when time when there is no time, now you're kind of floating. So it goes by a lot faster.
I'm glad you brought that up because I just purchased 30-day certificates of achievement because I realized like I've been doing these different 30-day challenges, whether it's meditation or workout or whatever, and I forget them. You know, you do these things, you forget them because like you said, we're 44. Yeah. We got all these other things going on. You forget the things that your W's and your wins. You're not getting the trophies anymore. You're not getting the high fives that you used to. And so I'm gonna start giving myself certificates and writing them out for myself so that I can remember the things that I've achieved and accomplished.
Well, because I remember like we're comedians as well, and it's a thing where you talk to a lot of comedians that are doing well. But they're like, hey, man, my career's not moving. It's like, okay, where were you last year? Yeah. Well, I couldn't even get into this. Well, you're in that club. Like just the little wins we forget about because we get so consumed with big wins. Yeah. And I tell everybody, when you move to Hollywood, if you could take one thing from me, everybody moves to Hollywood says, I want to do this. But you should be like, I want to be on TV one day a week. Like my thing is, I just want to be on TV one day a week. Got that. Then it was 2. Then my goal was 4. Then, okay, I want a full-time TV gig. So when people just come to Hollywood and go, I want to be on TV, and then it takes them a while to get it, they feel like they're not accomplishing anything, you know? And then now
it's all about those incremental goals.
Yes. And make goals you can actually do. Mm-hmm. Don't make unrealistic goals because like your goal can be unrealistic. You know, aim for the stars on the goal at the end, but make steps where it's not just the goal. It's like right now, I'm trying to break into acting because I've been hosting all this time. Stand-up comedian, being a stand has open the doors for that. So when the industry kicks up, you know, I got some things lined up. But it was kind of like, let me get a great agent that really believes in me. That was the first step because I was like, I want to be in movies. Yes, I want to be on TV. Yes, I want to be one of the biggest actors. But without the right agent, you ain't getting none of that. Mm-hmm. Then you got to take the classes. I want to find the best acting coach where they believe in me. I want to find an acting coach that believes in me. Found that. Okay, now I feel like I'm moving forward. My agent, I had a bunch of auditions the week I got sick. My next thing was, I just want to get in. Like I told my agent, get me in the door. I don't even care if I get the job. I just want to impress casting agents right now. I don't care if I get booked. I know this is a long process. And so they did that. And I've impressed a lot of people. I made it to like second cuts, like where it's me in between somebody else. So I'm moving forward in that. My goal this year before COVID was even if I don't get an acting job, let me impress some people so they remember me as an actor, not just a host. So that was my goal. And that's a very realistic goal because that's all about you putting in the work and nobody else can determine like if you're going to be good when you go in. Like they can say you're not right for the part, but they can't say you weren't good. You know what I mean? And where so much of this industry is what I like about stand-up is the stage. Oh my God, no prejudice. Now there's prejudice in getting on a stage. I will admit that. But once you're on there, if you're funny, you're fucking funny. I don't care. You could be the biggest star in the world. They'll give you a minute, maybe 2. But if you're not funny, you're not funny. You know what I mean? And that's what I love the stage. That's the thing I love about stand-up. Because when I first got in it, I was like, oh shit, this is an equal ground. It's all about the work you put in, you know? And if you have some talent and then you keep refining it and putting in the work, you can excel past people that are not putting in the work, that just want to say they're a comedian. And that's why I really loved it.
Yeah, you brought up some good points in terms of, like, setting goals, small incremental goals, small wins, and then also not just setting up small goals and small wins, but also make sure you celebrate those small wins. Celebrate that when you get on TV for the first time, celebrate that. And then when you get on TV 2 times a week, you celebrate those small wins, because a lot of people don't take the time to do that, and I'm guilty of that. And that's one of the reasons why I bought this, the certificates, is because I was like, oh man, I'm not taking time to celebrate my tiny wins. And then how do I expect I'm going to feel when I get the big win if I can't even appreciate this moment? And the other thing is, you definitely want to set those small incremental goals, but also have those moonshots. Like, for me, one of my moonshots is I want to go to I want to visit all 7 continents. And I was going to knock that out this year before this COVID took place. But I'm at 5, so I have Australia and Antarctica left. Mm-hmm. So you want to have these things that you look forward to, so that you're not 65 or 70, like you're going to look forward to. That's on you. You have to take the time to figure out what matters to you, what'll get you out of bed in the morning, what'll light you up, what'll excite you, what'll feed your soul. And that's not independent on someone giving it to you. You have to have, we're on this interdependent world, but you have to have goals that, are based on other people's opinion, like, getting booked on shows, but also have the goals for yourself, of whether it's planting petunias and watching those grow, or making rosemary bread. Like, whatever your goal is, have those goals for yourself, so that you have a purpose and a mission. You have an enthusiasm and lust for life.
All right, Leo Flowers, where can people find you, bro?
Man, go to thrivewithleo.com, thrivewithleo.com. Check that out for one-on-one coaching with me. And my podcast is called Before You Kill Yourself. Before You Kill Yourself. It's on iTunes. It's on Stitcher. We're at almost 200 episodes, and we have New York Times bestselling authors, comedians. We just had tomorrow's episode is going to be with Robert Angel, who is the creator of the game Pictionary. So we're not just talking suicide. We're talking about how to thrive. We're talking about how to live. We're talking about giving you a reason to get out of bed in the morning, and giving you a reason to tuck you in at night. So let's go.
Thrive with Leo. That was your girl's idea, huh? I know that wasn't you.
It was
no, it wasn't.
Reciprocity, Michael Yo.
Yeah, you know what it was? It was her going, Thrive with Leo sounds really good. And you go, oh yeah, that works. That's what your interaction was. I'll go to GoDaddy and buy that. That was you buying it on GoDaddy. Nah, man, I'm happy for you. All is good. Yes, thank you for being on the pod. For the rest of the people, remember, if you download the pod and listen, if you ever want to check out the videos, you can go to my Facebook page or my YouTube page. I put them on a couple of days before they come out on podcast. Appreciate all the love from the Joe Rogan show. Got so many more new followers, listeners, and everything like that. So if you do listen to the podcast, leave a comment, subscribe. It does so much, and 5-star it up. That's all I got to say. All right, Leo, have a good one.
Thank you, brother.
Be good. Tell your girl hi, and I'll see you. I'll see you soon, bro.
All right, brother. Be right.
Later. And thanks to everybody else for watching. I really appreciate it. You can also support the podcast by getting a Michael Yo cap. If you want to rock it, it's on michaelyo.com. Everything I do is on michaelyo.com. Check it out. Love you guys. Bye.